So this video focuses on how to obtain data to determine the longitudinal stick-fixed stability of the Cessna 172 SP using the Stabilised method. So the first step is to trim the aircraft, and ideally the indicated airspeed should be around 100 knots and the aircraft should be able to hold steady level flight for at least 10 seconds. The aircraft can be trimmed using the trim switch on the yoke handle, and it takes me a minute or so to adjust this. As you can see, sort of playing around with it for a while. So the aircraft is now in steady level flight, and I'm pointing at the indicated airspeed gauge in the data output graph where the lilac line at the top represents the normal acceleration, and this is constant at a value of around 1. I've also changed the view to the outside of the aircraft so you can see what's going on a bit better. So I'm now pulling back on the yoke to pitch the aircraft up and decrease the speed to around 90 knots. The aircraft then needs to be stabilised at this airspeed, so it takes a little while of pushing and pulling the yoke to get it at steady level flight at 90 knots. So once the aircraft is stabilised, I can check on the data output graph that the lilac line at the top is constant and at around a value of 1, and that the airspeed is staying constant. Then I can bring the aircraft down to 80 knots, which again takes a little while of sort of pushing and pulling on the yoke to get it in steady level flight. And again, once the aircraft is being held in steady level flight for at least 10 seconds, I can then move the aircraft down to 70 knots. 70 knots was definitely the trickiest to get the aircraft to stabilise at because the aircraft was hard to control at such a low speed. Once all the data for the lower airspeeds was collected, the airspeed was then increased to around 110 knots. And finally, the airspeed was increased to 120 knots. You should have been able to see throughout the flight testing tutorial that my eyes are constantly fluttering between looking at the indicated airspeed, looking at the aircraft, and looking at the data output graph. I'd say it was challenging trying to focus on all three at the same time, and that's why we had two people working on this at the same time. So one person was keeping an eye on the graph, and the other one was keeping an eye on the aircraft and the speed gauges.